Hmm.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are truly delighted to see such a large and diverse audience here with us. And before we begin, I'd like to make this session a bit more interactive. Please take a moment to write in the chat where you are joining us from, because it's always inspiring to see our global community come together. My name is Shalala Mehmedli. I'm an English teacher from Azerbaijan, an IELTS Azerbaijan ambassador, and media literacy lead at STEP Azerbaijan. And it's my pleasure to co-host today's session. This webinar is a joint initiative organized by IELTS Azerbaijan, IELTS Turkey, and STEP Azerbaijan. Let me briefly introduce our organizations. The International English Language Teachers Association is a nonprofit organization founded in 2020, dedicated to enhancing English language teaching and learning globally. IELTS provides professional development opportunities, supports effective language policies, and fosters a strong, supportive international community of educators. And a little bit about STEP Azerbaijan, Society for Teaching Excellence and Progress, founded in 2024 and based in Baku. It's a professional development platform focused on advancing teaching practices, and especially in English language education. STEP organizes workshops, seminars, offline and online collaborative events to equip educators with innovative and practical teaching practices and strategies. And now I would like to hand over to my wonderful co-host, Miss Gulbin.
Thank you, Shalala. Hello, everyone. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, even good night to all of you. And we would like to welcome you all in our, I think that is third or fourth webinar that we're making as a joint webinar. So my name is Gülbin Özdemir, and I'm an educator working with gifted students at Serik Bilim and Sanat Merkezi. Normally, it's just a center for gifted and talented students. So I am based in Turkey, in Antalya, and I'm also an IELTS Turkey ambassador. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Now, it's my great honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Matt Kharbach, and he is an educator and researcher and the editor of Educators Technology. He is a former K-12 teacher with nearly 2 decades of teaching experience across various educational settings. Dr. Kharbach currently serves as an instructor at Mount St. Vincent University in Canada, where he also earned both his master's degree and PhD. He's the author of Teaching with AI, Practical Strategies to Integrate AI in the Classroom, and also co-author of the AI Turned in Academic Research and the Biera Framework for Pedagogical Integration, alongside Dr. Jonathan Woodward. His work focuses on AI literacy, assessment in the age of AI, and practical classroom applications of educational technology. We are truly honored to have him with us today. Dr. Karba, the floor is yours right now. We would
Thank
like
you
to
very
welcome
much.
you again.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very generous introduction. I am very much happy to be with you here today. So hopefully we can start sharing the screen right now. No glitches. Let's see. Oops.
Fingers
There we go.
crossed.
All right.
No worries.
Let's put it on flight mode here. And then we go to sharing screen. Okay, do you see my screen right now?
Yeah. Awesome.
Good. All right. So my presentation today, I'm going to be looking at here. So my presentation today will be on teaching with AI, and this is basically based on the book I have published last year on how to effectively integrate AI in the classroom. And so this book kind of grow out of my own experiences using AI with my own graduate students at the Mount University, and also from the very very much interesting discussions I have with teachers in the workshops or conferences I attend, and also through discussions with the online community. And I learned a lot from teachers from all around the world, and we've been having some very fruitful kind of interactions around AI and its use in education. And in this presentation, I would like to share with you some insights, both from the book I have written and also from the knowledge I gathered from these interactions with teachers. And so it's going to be, I know at least some of you, at least I think, are teachers. And so I will be speaking directly to the practical side of how to apply AI in an effective way in your own teaching, as well as in your own professional development. And so just a little note here that we are all still learning about this new technology. And I hope you'll find my insights helpful, and I hope we're going to have a good discussion afterward. All right. So the first thing we will start with is the elephant in the room, which is AI literacy. And so there's a lot of talk about AI literacy. And I like this definition I put here. It's from Mills, I think from UNESCO, and she defines it as the knowledge and skills that enable people to critically understand, evaluate, and use AI systems and tools to safely and effectively participate in an increasingly digital world. And so I want to notice here the three keywords here. It's critically understand, evaluate, and use. So, which means that AI literacy, a lot of people and teachers that I talk to, they think about it in terms of the tools and platforms that we use. And in fact, AI literacy is way more nuanced than just tools and technology. It's also, it's basically more about our understanding of how AI works. And so when we say to people AI literacy is about understanding the system, how it works, its limitations, its outputs. And so they think that we need some kind of technical knowledge to know and understand the system, when in fact we don't. We simply need to build this foundational knowledge about how AI works and what are its limitations, how its models are trained, and this is some basic knowledge that is accessible to everybody, I would say. And so when we have a uh, when we have a look at the various definitions online of AI literacy, and there are many definitions, we notice that most of them, they focus on three components, which are knowledge and skills and attitudes. And knowledge is what I just talked about. I mean, how AI works and its limitations. And then there is the skills part of AI literacy, which is basically a collection of the different skills that were already present before even AI or generative AI comes over. And so we're talking about digital literacy, data literacy, I mean, media literacy, critical thinking. So these are all skills that are included in AI literacy. And then we have the third component in the AI literacy concept, which is attitudes. And this one does not really receive attention as much, because uh, we talk about AI literacy in terms only of skills and competencies, but as it's equally important that we think about AI literacy in terms of the attitudes, the mindset of the teacher. Because if you're a teacher and you're coming to AI from an anti-technology perspective, that it's going to be very hard for you to integrate technology in your own and AI in your own teaching. And so we need to focus as well on our mindset, on how we view technology in general and AI in particular, because what I find is teachers who use AI in their own personal experiences, they are the ones who are more open to try AI with their students. And when I talk about attitudes, I also talk about things like openness to change, readiness to make mistakes, to take risks. And these are very important aspects of the personality of the teacher who wants to try out AI. And so, because it's a new thing, and some people are afraid that they're going to screw it up, that they're going to make mistakes. And so, we need to work on our attitudes just as much as we work on the skills and technical skills that we bring to AI. And so the importance of AI literacy is there are different reasons, and I have six here on the slideshow. And of course, you can think about other reasons as well, but I just focused on these six reasons. The first one is our students are already using it. And we know that many of them are using it to do their homework, to write their essays, to generate visuals. And the problem is most of the students are using it without guidance. And so if we're not part of that conversation of how AI is being used, so I think we are leaving our students to figure it out on their own, and there can be a lot of confusion. And then second, we have students are actually going to graduate into an AI focused world. And that's my argument for teachers, especially on LinkedIn, because uh, uh, there are some teachers who are still resistant to AI. And the problem is, whether you like it or not, the student you're teaching today, by 3, 4 years from now, and the jobs they will be having, they will all be AI enabled. And so we cannot prepare students for the job market if we're not using AI. And this is very important because we will be doing this service to them. I don't want my kid to go to a school where a teacher does not want to use AI, because I know the world where my kid will be working and living. And it's not only job market, it's the civic life in general, because we see AI now is taking over. And so everything will be AI, and we better prepare them. But the thing is, there are certain boundaries. There are certain kind of considerations we need to take and strategies in order to prepare them in an effective way. And the third way is, as I said, AI is embedded right now in almost every tool. There is this competitive edge between platforms and apps. And so everybody now, I mean, from the perspectives of the people who provide technology services online, everybody is integrating AI in their platform. So if you use Gmail, Microsoft, Copilot, Outlook, Google Docs, any platform you use, you either use AI consciously or you are using AI unconsciously. But the result is AI is there. And fourth, AI gets things very wrong, and we know it. So everybody here who has been trying AI knows that it hallucinates, makes a lot of mistakes. And so we need to catch these mistakes, and we need to teach students how to do it. And then we have the efficiency part of AI, which I like a lot because it can save you a lot of time. And teachers, there are studies now that report that teachers are saving time. They save up to, I think, 6 hours per week on using AI to help them with low stake tasks like lesson planning, creating rubrics, differentiating activities, things like that. So, and then we have the sixth part, which is very important, and I will cover in a later point here, is assessment. It's very important now that we rethink what assessments are and what kind of learning our assessment now kind of validate, and what are some of the strategies that we can apply in our classrooms to create assessment that accommodate AI. And so that's in general just six of the points that I think are why AI literacy is very important. Okay, and now for the roadmap here, uh, uh, now that we have a foundation of what AI literacy is, I'd like to talk about first AI pedagogy, and then we'll talk about how to bring AI into the classroom, and then we'll go into assessment, and finally we'll talk about reflective practice. I like to start with AI pedagogy here. Okay, so for pedagogy, this is a big word, and for us teachers, we use it a lot, and sometimes we don't have clear definitions of what we mean by pedagogy. But in general, we have this UNESCO definition, which says that it's the art and science of teaching. It encompasses various methods and strategies educators use to facilitate learning. It involves understanding how students learn, the design of instructional materials, and the assessment of educational outcomes. So I want to highlight the last part here, because understanding how students learn, designing materials, and assessing outcomes. And that's the whole cycle of what we as teachers do. And when we talk about AI and integrating it in our teaching, I mean exactly, we need to put it inside this cycle. So we cannot separate AI from this cycle. And that's the key point here, because AI integration, in my view, it should be intentional. It should be structured, and it should be grounded in pedagogy first. Before we start thinking about tools or platforms, we need to think about our pedagogy, our way of teaching, the activities we want to do, the objectives of of our learning and teaching. So all of these, they should align with our curricular goals. And sorry, you still hear me?
We hear you. No worries.
Okay, I just heard some echo. I was thinking something going wrong. So as we said, we start with pedagogy, and then in pedagogy we have this backward design, because and it's very important to use AI. We need to think first about the objectives of our lesson. What are we going to teach? What are the learning objectives that we're going to teach? What we want our students to learn, the competencies and skills we want our students to develop. That's the starting point, not the tool. We're not going to start with which tool we're going to use. We're going to start with our objectives of our teaching, of the lesson. And then we need to think about evidence. When we teach a certain skill or competency, we need to think very profoundly about what is the evidence that student provides us, which shows that he or she masters or understands the skill or the competency we taught them. So we need to think about the evidence, which means our assessment activities. And then third, we need to only then we need to talk about resources and tools and AI. And so AI comes in the third part of this backward design. And by the way, backward design is a concept which is included in the understanding by design, and probably some of you are familiar with it. And it's by, I think, Maytag and Wiggins. There's a book called Understanding by Design, very interesting one. It shows teachers how to design curriculum materials using this framework, meaning instead of starting with tools, the assignments, with activities, you start with the objectives, then you think about the resources, the activities, and then you go to technology. So just to wrap up here, technology and AI comes third, not first. After we have settled our objectives, the resources and the assessments, only then we go and see, will technology help me in any way advance these learning goals for my students? If the answer is yes, then yes, we can include AI and technology in that. If it's no, then probably we don't even need it for that lesson. And then, so the first part of integrating AI with your students, which I do with my university students, is building an AI agreement. And this is very important because uh, if we don't have an AI agreement with our students, then there will be confusion because students will not know when and where to use and what's acceptable AI use and what's not. And an AI agreement, I usually have a discussion with my students, a group discussions about what's acceptable use and what's not acceptable. And from there, we have some insights from them and they show them, we share ideas. Sometimes we use AI as well to come up with ideas. And some of the part I include is this traffic light uh, analogy. It's very popular online. It's not my framework. I've seen it online. Some people use it, this one here, and I find it very helpful, especially if you're teaching in K-12 settings, not university, like middle school or high school. This can be a good activity. So you have students and they discuss based on these three lights. So we have the green light, which means go ahead. In this part here, you talk about the activities or the things that students are allowed to use AI in. And then you talk about the yellow light, which is these are parts where students need to be careful when using AIs, like summarizing, reading, outlining an essay structure. So the thing with these activities is you tell students, okay, you can use AI here, but you need to be very careful with how you use it because it requires much more judgment. And then we have the third one is the red light, which means these are the activities and the things that I don't accept AI being used in them as a teacher. So I tell them, for instance, if you're going to provide me with a final product, I want it to be yours. I want it to reflect your own voice and things like that. So the traffic light analogy here can be a very interesting activity to have with your students, especially in the first term of the class. So what I do personally is when I start a new course, I have the first class, I would have this discussion with my students about AI use, and we create an agreement. We have points, what is acceptable, what's not. If somebody breaches this agreement, what is the punishment? What is the ethical considerations? And so we have this major kind of discussion. We put the points in a document and we keep the document throughout the course. And each time we have a problem with somebody getting out of the terms that we have put together, we go back to the document and said, hey, we have already discussed this and this and this on our use. Sometimes I also talk about the tools they are allowed to use or not and things like that. And the thing is, I like to keep this kind of I call it AI agreement because I don't like the word policy because it has this connotations of power and top-down kind of hierarchy. So with an agreement, students feel like this is a document that they take part in creating. And usually, when we create this agreement, we also have the school or the university AI policy. We have it in the background because we want our own classroom agreement to align with the agreement of or the policy of the university AI use. And so based on the university AI policy, we create own agreement in a very plain English language, very easy with things clear and stuff like that. And when students create when they take part in creating this kind of agreement, it makes them take ownership of their own AI use, and you can imagine how much accountable they start feeling when they know they have taken part in the rules they have themselves discussed and agreed upon. And so usually when we have an agreement, we usually have a very smooth AI integration. And now we move on to traditional assessment or the problem of assessment. And I know many teachers here and online and the people I talk to in workshops, they have a very serious problem in assessment. And I do as well with my students, to be honest, because the thing with AI is this is a pedagogy that's being constructed in real time. So it's not like before we have certain teaching core and pedagogies. They are there. We just learn them and use them. Now we are building a pedagogy as AI is moving and advancing. The pedagogy is being reshaped every single week, day, month, year. So this is a pedagogy ongoing in its instruction. And so and the problem is assessment has a big problem, and here's why. The traditional assessment model is no longer working. And what is this traditional assessment model? It's you have students that you lecture, you provide readings, you provide discussions and practice problems. Then the student produces a product, an essay, a report of some sort, or a project or something. And then as a teacher, you grade that product that the student produces. And you maybe you use your own grading criteria to grade that essay. And then the assumption is the product that the student produces is the evidence of learning. And that's the core assumption in the traditional assessment model. If a polished product is a reliable evidence that learning has taken place, and we have been using this model for many years, and it worked perfectly well. But now, I mean, if a student provided a well-written essay before AI, you could reasonably assume that he did or she did the reading, they did their homework, they did the thinking through the argument, so they put the work. So the product told us something very meaningful about the process. Now with AI, it disrupts the whole loop. Now, look what happens with AI is involved. The student gets the assignment, the same essay, the same problem set, but now they generate a very perfect product in seconds. And so sometimes it's even indistinguishable from students' work. And teacher, they grade this work and they think that it represents or it becomes the evidence of learning, when in fact it's not. So the product is no longer does not anymore equal learning. So we cannot take it as an evidence that our students has learned simply based on the product they provide us. So this assumption collapses. Now, if you are assessing or grading the product alone, then your assessment no longer measures what you think it measures. And this is very key. And this is the part I think a lot of us teachers are still wrestling with, because the instinct is to ask, and many teachers now are focused on how do I catch students using AI? You know why they say this? Because they want still to use the old traditional model. They want still to feel like, yes, the product the students provide me is evidence of their learning. And so in order to protect this traditional model, I have to police students' AI use. And this is, I think, this is wrong. And so that's the wrong question, because detection is a losing game, completely a losing game. And as you know, there is a lot of research now that AI detection tools are unreliable. They produce false positives. They flag non-native English speakers disproportionately. Plus, the technology keeps getting better at avoiding detection anyway. So the real question here is, how do I design assessments where the product alone isn't the only evidence of learning? So how do I make students' learning visible? And that's where we need to go. And that's what the next few slides are going to be about. So let me see here. Oh, yeah. So here we talked about validity in assessment. And this is a very interesting point. As we say, validity is about whether your assessment actually measure what the students learns. That's the validity. So think about it this way: if AI can produce a passing grade for a submission that no human, with little human intervention, then what are you measuring? You're not measuring learning. You're simply measuring students' prompting skills. And to me, that's a validity problem. So, and some researchers like Corbin and his colleagues, they refer to the problem of assessment AI as a wicked problem because it has no simple fix. You can just ban AI and pretend the problems goes away. So, so here's what you can do. You can shift the question you're asking. The wrong question is, did this student cheat? Because that puts the role of, but because if we start with this question as a teacher, you become a detective. So somebody might just need to mute their audio. I think I have some echo going on here. Okay, good. So the wrong question is, did the student cheat? And as I said, this is the false starting point. So the right question we need to ask is, can my assessment still tell me what the student knows? And that's a completely different starting point. It moves from policing students to designing. So the focus is on design and learning, and not on detection and policing. So the answer to that question is there are many different ways and strategies that we can use to design assessments that actually help us understand how our students are learning. There is number one, we can design assessments that connect to students' personal experiences. Now, you can ask students to link concepts to their own context, to their own lived experiences and their own observations. So, and AI find it very hard to fabricate a lived experience. So if you ask a students to write about a scientific concept that shows up in their neighborhood, or if you connect a historical event to something their family experienced, that's work they can only do. They might ask AI to help them, but they will still have to articulate their own lived experiences. So that's what we're talking about. So here we are still using AI at some form, but the engagement of the students is much more than if you provide an assessment where a single prompt can provide a polished product. Number two is focus on transfer. So you give students some new problems they haven't seen before, and you ask them to apply what they learned in class to those problems. So that's called transfer. I mean, they take knowledge from what they learned and they apply it to different scenarios. And we transfer, it brings genuine understanding. And now number three is make your assessment incremental, which means process based. So instead of just giving one assignment, so you can bring your assignments into stages. For instance, in one stage, the students are being asked to reflect. They are being asked to provide the draft, to do a revision, and then probably peer feedback, then a final reflection. So don't just grade the final product. No, if we're going to assign an essay to students, then we can make it into different stages. Stage number one, you ask them, come up with a first draft. Then this first draft shared with your students. That's how I do it with my graduate students. So we start with the first draft. They share it with their peers, and their peers provide feedback on the first draft. And then when they come back to class, each student, they need to work on the feedback that their peer provided them. And then they need to write a second draft. And then in this second draft, they include the feedback their students provide them. They can also use AI to get feedback on their draft. And sometimes what we do is I ask them, okay, so you get feedback from your peer. Now use AI to get feedback on that draft and compare the feedback you get from AI with the feedback you get from your peers. And then compare the two feedback and write another draft in which you explain the changes you make, which feedback you find more useful and which not, which decision you took. So the logic here, or the reason is, I want to see the process of thinking of the students, and that's what we mean by making thinking visible in students' assignments. And so there's also the fourth one is oral and live components. This is very old one, and now it's re-emerging as an important assessment strategy. Sometimes when I assign students a written report or a research project, what I do is I tell them, okay, the final product is very important for sure, but my grade, the mark you get for this assignment, is not based only on the essay or the research you provide me. You still need to do a presentation, a live presentation in the classroom, or I might have an interview and it's graded interview and it's included in the final grade. So they have to provide a written essay, then they need to defend some of the ideas they have in that essay in the classroom. They need to discuss them because if they don't understand, so let's say they use AI to help them with writing the essay. So they use AI in the written part. Now, in the live oral discussions, they need to explain those ideas that are in the essay, and that's very important. They explain them to their peers as well, and then sometimes I include reflections, very important. And I tell students, okay, now you have written this essay. Now I need 500 words reflection on the processes and the research process used to write this project or essay. So the reflective memos or reflective journals, they are very important in my assessment strategy with my students because they tell me a lot of what took place inside students' mind when they were preparing this assessment. So, and then the other one here we have one of the activities I use with my students is to critique AI outputs. So I would give them this assignment, and then I will tell them, okay, you are allowed to use AI, okay? But you bring me the output of AI, and then we discuss it together. Or write a piece on that AI outputs, critique it, why you would not take AI's output as it is. What would you change? What's missing in the AI output? And sometimes I turn it into an ethical discussions because some of the AI outputs are missing certain perspectives, certain knowledge systems, and whose voices are not represented, whose voices are absent, and so we kind of turn it into ethical discussions about AI and its knowledge base. And now let me provide you with quick types of examples here. I said there are oral defenses, process portfolios, AI critique tasks. So these are all kinds of assessments where that helps us as teachers see the students thinking. And let me say this, these assessments, they are not 100% AI proof. I don't think there is any assessment that is 100% AI proof. AI now can be used to answer any type of assessment except the in-person proctored exams and also live and oral presentations. That's the only, I think, parts where AI cannot be used. But in any other things, anything that includes some type of written output, AI can do it. Even the reflection part, AI still can help students write their reflections. And so there is no AI proof. So what we need to do is we need to make stages inside our assessment to make it hard for AI to provide just one-off product to students. So if you're going to use AI, at least I need to know that you learned something throughout the process and that you as a student have used it in a productive way. And so by integrating these assessment strategies into your assessment plan, you push students to do the thinking themselves. You push them to engage more with AI and use it in an efficient way. Okay, so some of the tools here I like to talk because the practical part of this presentation here, some of the tools, because some of you probably might be thinking about the tools, AI tools we can use. And when it comes to AI tools, and I write a lot about AI tools online, I have reviewed I would say, 100 AI tools over the last 2, 3 years, and I got a lot of feedback from teachers, and I see what my colleagues here, in teachers and colleagues, are using, and some of the ones I use too. So, if you ask me, what is the best AI tool to use in my teaching? The answer is the best AI tool is just a mainstream chatbot. That's my favorite AI tools. If you're going to use AI, this is one of the best. And everything else, every other tool, they use some form of underlying AI API from these mainstream chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. So as a teacher, you can pretty much get everything you need from a chatbot. But that said, there are also other tools to use, and I will talk about them. But let me speak to those people who use chatbot. If you use ChatGPT in your teaching, then you probably need to look at this feature called projects. It's on the right side hand. When you open ChatGPT, you will find projects. And so you can click on a project and you create an environment where you only upload things that are specific to that task you do. Let's say you're teaching a unit on globalization. So you create a project on globalization, and then you upload the materials, like your teaching documents, like your lesson plans, like your rubrics, presentations, things like that. And so what you're doing is you're creating a very contained environment where you build a memory. So you allow the ChatGPT to build a very profound memory of your unit. And each time you come to the project, you don't have to remind ChatGPT of previous chats and stuff like that, because in the mainstream chat, ChatGPT has a powerful memory right now. But when your chat goes long and long and long and days, it probably will lose some of the threads in that chat. With the project memory, it keeps this memory solid. So you have everything about your course, and every time you come back to that project, you can ask ChatGPT to create guided quizzes, to create, rubrics for your lessons and that like that. So if you're using ChatGPT, I would highly recommend you look at the project feature. It's very important. And the second thing is, and by the way, the projects features is also available in Claude, and I'm not sure about Gemini. I'm not a big user of Gemini. I like their Gemini Nano Pro for creating images. I love it, but for the mainstream chatbot Gemini, I don't use it as much. I use a lot Claude Cowork now, and I use ChatGPT as well. So I don't use Copilot for obvious reasons. For me, I don't find it as very powerful, but I heard teachers using it and they like it. So if you like Copilot, then that's fine. So uh, the thing is, there is also, for those of you using ChatGPT, and this is a very unique feature in ChatGPT, which is creating custom GPTs. Very powerful feature. And many teachers I work with, they use this one. I used it in a previous course. So you create a private GPT. It's very easy, no technical knowledge. And I think some of you are already familiar with it, I would say. But if you're not familiar with it, you simply go to YouTube, see how to create a private GPT. It's very easy. 1 minute you create it. So what you do is, it's similar to project, but here the environment is even much more contained and restricted. So and you can do many things with this. For instance, I created a reading coach GPT, and in the creation, I instructed GPT to never provide direct answer to students, and I also instructed it to ask students specific questions first, whether they have read the material, then to push them to explain their understanding of the reading. Okay, so and then when I create this GPT, I share the link with my students, and they use it to interact with it, and then they share the link of their interactions with me. For instance, let's say I have this PDF on something like AI literacy. and I have this GPT now, and I told them, okay, use the custom GPT I share with you, interact with it about the PDF you read, and then share with me that interaction. So that interaction shows me their understanding of the PDF, whether they have read it or not, because the GPT I created, I included many questions that the students need to answer. And the GPT, the custom GPT does not provide the private answer, direct answers. They still can use ChatGPT to cheat for sure. Some of you might thinking, well, you created this. They simply can go to another computer or their phone and use ChatGPT to use. But the thing is, let's say I have this reading on ChatGPT and I asked them to interact with it using the custom GPT. If I have 20 students and everybody uses ChatGPT, they would have similar answers. They would have similar contact and content, and that provides them with no competitive edge at all. So only students who are grade A plus students are the ones who use their thinking, use novel content, new content. And those who use ChatGPT to cheat, you would still know that I've used it because you would find the same ideas being repeated in different papers. And so the custom GPT is very important one here. And there is also Notebook LM. I'm sure a lot of you use it. This is an important tool to use with your students here. Uh, the same thing, you create a project or you create a note in Notebook LM for your lesson, for your course, for your unit or curriculum material. You upload whatever you want, and then you can quickly create study guides, formative assessments, rubrics, presentations. And the thing with Notebook LM, which I like the most, is, for instance, I would upload my course materials, and then I would ask it to generate an audio version of the lesson I want or something I teach them. And I ask it to generate an audio file, and then I provide students with the audio file. And this is very important for people, for neurodivergent students and students with disabilities. It provides them with a way to access the learning, just like their peers. And also, some students like to listen to audios where they are working out, where they are out or in their homes. So I provide them with a version that they can listen to while they are doing their things. And so, yeah, these are just some of the tools I like. Lesson planning with AI, I like to cover it very quickly because I think we're running out of time here. So one of the biggest things about AI is how to use it in your lesson planning.
哪个不是啊？
Yeah. And so as I said, one of the biggest thing about AI is in using it in lesson planning. And I've been doing a lot of workshops with teachers here in Canada on how to use AI effectively in to design your lesson plans. And we talked about a lot of tools, just very few pointers here about AI and lesson planning. First, you start with your learning objectives. As I said, whenever you're going to use AI to help you design a lesson, you need to come up with the learning objectives early in lesson first, understand them. What are you going to teach? What are the things that your students need to show you in order to demonstrate that they have learned what you taught them, and then you go to AI to then look for them. Always when you use AI, this is, I think, by now, it's a cliche. Many of you would agree that the first product is usually clunky and not the one you want. So you always try to push the AI to give you more answers. Never settle for the first answer. Always try to ask it, can you improve it? Can you provide with a different version? So do not accept the first version just at face value. Always try to iterate the prompting. And also one of the things is I always ask teachers to always upload their curriculum documents to AI and provide AI with context about your teaching situation. The more context you provide AI, the better outputs you get, especially when lesson planning. I talk about lesson planning because that's the activity most teachers spend time on, and that's a very time-consuming yet very low-stake task. And so AI here is a perfect match to help you reduce that one. And then here is a collection of the tools. So I say to people, some people don't like to improve their prompting techniques, or they don't have the time to engage with AI and with ChatGPT, with Claude, with Gemini, with chatbots. I mean, there are certain tools like the ones you see here on the screen. These are tools that are specifically designed with teachers in mind, because the thing with AI tools here, the market is flooded with AI tools, and they are commercialized in a way that appeal to teachers when in fact these are just garbage tools, and they don't even need to be used with students from an ethical point of view, from a functional point of view. And so there are many, many tools out there that are not really fit to be used in an educational settings. And so when I talk to teachers about AI tools, when they ask for recommendations, as I say, always start with mainstream chatbots. If not, then here are some of the tools, at least that are designed, some of them by teachers, and they are more, kind of convenient for our educational settings. And so the last point before professional development is to keep a reflective AI journal. Very important for teachers. Everybody who is using AI with their students, they need to have a reflective journal. Reflective practice is very important for us teachers. I mean, if you want to grow and develop your teaching, whether it's with AI or not, we need to be able to come back home and spend just a few minutes just writing down your reflections of how your lesson went, how you used AI, how AI helped you in that lesson, how students responded, did it help them learn? I mean, any limitations around that AI use. So the more reflective notes you have, and as the course progresses, there will come one day where you have many notes, reflective notes. You read through them, you see patterns, you see insights, and they will help you improve your practice. So I always highly recommend teachers to keep a reflective journal where they capture their thoughts about their AI use with their students, as it can help them improve their teaching. And then the last one here is the professional development. This is very key. This is very new. AI is very new, and teachers are already burnt by a lot of work. And we ask from them to do a lot. And so we do understand that this is very hard time for them, and especially given that AI is challenging everything that we have grown up using in our teaching. So when I started teaching back in Morocco, by the way, I am from Morocco, North Africa. And so when I started teaching back in Morocco in 2003, internet was just being a thing at the time. Facebook, YouTube, there was no social media around. And so I was teaching language. And so there was less technology back then, and the traditional teaching model was the mainstream. With AI now, everything is disrupted, and the problem is it's not only disrupted, but we don't have clear answers to how to do things yet. Research is being done continuously right now, and so the thing with technology is when there is a new invention, we have the old style of doing things, then we have a new technology, and then we have a new style of doing things based on the new technology. So where are we right now? We are in the middle. So in this transitional period from old model to a new model. Do we know about what's the new model? We don't have a very clear idea of what this new model is going to be do. but we know that we are in a transition period, and transition periods are always hard. They are always challenging because that's the time when you experiment with new things, when things don't work or don't work. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot of failures. And so we are expected to see a lot of failures in how AI is being used in classrooms. And there are many research studies now that are just started evaluating the impact of AI on students' thinking, on their cognitive abilities, on their learning, and also on teachers as well, on their efficiency, whether AI really helps you be efficient or it's simply a tool that helps you substitute what you already used to do. And so these discussions sometimes are uncomfortable, but they are very important to help us grow professionally as teachers. And so, as I said, professional development is very important. I have few guides here. Maybe I'll share a document with the hosts or something with links to, if you're interested in the guides. I share some guides I have written myself, and there are several other guides out there that I personally think every teacher need to read. Every teacher interested in very serious about AI integration. There are certain guides that I think, like guide from the UNESCO, this framework for students and for teachers as well. This guide here, a guide to AI in schools. These are, I think, foundational, and they need to be read very carefully. They have a lot of insights, a lot of knowledge, as can be helpful. With this, I think I come to the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening. And I would be glad to have any question you have any. Thank you.
Dr. Kharbach, thank you so much for such an insightful and practical session. And if you have some more time, we'd like to move on to our Q&A segment.
Yeah, sure.
Do we have any questions, Ms. Gulbin?
Actually, we have. When it comes to AI, of course, we are having lots of questions. So, Dr. Karba, our first question is in the chat box, and they say, should we share some tools with the students as well to enhance their usage of AI and understand the task properly?
Yes, yes, that's a good question. The thing with sharing, there's two options here. You can either say to students, okay, here's the task, use AI without you clarifying what the tool is. And the second path is the one that you just mentioned, which means you say, okay, here's the task, and here is the AI tool you can use to work with the task. So I like the second one here. I like to provide students with the tools they need to use, because these tools I have as a teacher already used them. I have inquired about their privacy practices, what kind of data they collect about students. I have already tested how they answer questions and like things. So I have more an idea about how they work. And so it's way better for me as a teacher to recommend a certain tool to students to use than to just let them go out there and use whichever tool they like. It's not that some students are not being honest. You might recommend a tool and they might end up using their favorite tool. This happens a lot. But generally speaking, it would be best practice for teachers to guide their students towards the technology they need to use. And so students don't have yet that professional judgment that you as a teacher have. And so when you recommend a tool, it means you as a teacher have already done your homework of evaluating that tool, knowing it professionally before you give it to a student. And so, yes, I would highly recommend that you provide students with recommended tools to use.
Dr. Kharbach, we have an interesting question here, actually from our Google Forms, which asks, how can we ensure that AI usage, AI integration into the classroom helps us that it doesn't become a shortcut that bypasses critical thinking and problem solving? How can we
Yeah,
prevent it?
so yes, thank you. Uh, Another very important question here about critical thinking and AI being used to create shortcuts to learning, and that's a very serious problem. And we do have, before AI, students who have this inclination to cheat, they will cheat, they will circumvent the system, and they will do whatever it takes them to have that grade, right? So now with AI, it's no different. No matter what we do, there are some students who are going to use it maliciously. And I'm not talking about those, because in every classroom you will have some type of students who will do that. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about students who would love to use AI to help them learn and would use it in a very responsible, ethical ways. And we have many of them. And so for those, the job of a teacher is to model the right and effective AI use for them. And because if we're going to let students use AI just as a Google search engine or an answering machine, then they wouldn't be able to engage their thinking as much. So in short, we have to show students how to use AI as a thinking partner, and how to use it to further their thinking, as a feedback tool to help them get feedback on their own assignments and things like that. So that's through modeling. You come up with activities, and I have many activities, and I have this guide here in the screen. It has a lot of activities where you get to help students use AI, but in a very efficient and effective ways. And so through these activities, you get them to learn how to use it. And once they know how to use it properly, it can do a lot of, I mean, it can help them a lot with their own learning. And so that's the only thing we can say, because yes, AI can harm their critical thinking, their profound thinking, but it's our job as teachers to show them how to use it properly. And one of the ways to use it is through hands-on activities in the classrooms. And the guide I have there has tons of these activities you can try out in your class. Yeah.
Miss Gulbin, do you have any questions?
Actually, there are lots of questions over here, Shalala, but I think I need to choose because our distinguished speaker has been speaking for about 1 hour or so. So,
Yes.
so we don't want you to feel so tired or exhausted after the webinar. So, the next question would be this: how can we use AI tools for instructional design in best way? Do you have any practical suggestions, please?
Yeah, so I like the idea of using AI to help with instructional design. And I think that's one of the areas where AI can help us the most, is in designing our teaching materials. Uh, I like to use Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a very powerful one. So, for instance, I would upload my course materials and lesson materials, documents, PDF that I'm going to use, reading materials that I'm going to assign to students, and then I would get Notebook LM to help me come up uh, with activities, with differentiated activities, with ways, with even with visuals. It does a very good job producing infographics and concept maps. So I would ask it to provide or to create an infographic for a certain concept that I'm teaching based on the sources. Why I like to use Notebook LM? Because it works based on the sources you provided, and it does not fetch answers from a random source online. So that's what I like the most. Plus, of course, it has very powerful features like the concept mapping or the infographic features. I like it a lot, though it does not, sometimes there are errors in the infographic or in the visuals it creates. But what I do is, when it creates a visual, I download it to my computer, and then I take it to Canva, and then I use Canva to edit the visual. And for those of you who have Canva Pro, you can edit the text, you can edit the image, the background, and things like that. And so I always add my edits to the visual created by Notebook LM before I share it with my students. And so that's one of the tools that I like using for instructional design. As I said, ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot, mainstream ChatGPT platforms, conversational platforms, they are very good too. The thing is, always provide your own materials to the bot before using it to create any teaching materials. Always provide context. As much as context you provided, the more context, the better the output you get from it. So yeah.
So, Ms. Gulben, time to wrap up, I guess. We are so grateful to you, Dr. Kharbach. Unfortunately, time wasn't enough to cover everything, to answer all the questions. It was so interesting. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thank you, everyone, for being with us today. We hope that this session has provided you with valuable insights and practical ideas to integrate AI into your teaching. So please stay connected with IELTA and STEP Azerbaijan for more upcoming events and professional development opportunities. Gulben?
Thank you, Dr. Kharbach, for sharing your expertise and for such an engaging presentation. We all liked it, to be honest. We
Thank
would
you.
also like to thank to all our participants for joining us today and for your active participation.
Thank
And
you very much. Thank you.
we
Thank
hope
you for having
Dr.
me.
Kharbach will kindly share the presentation with our participants later. Can we do this?
Yeah, I think Shalala, I sent you
Yes.
hopefully I'm saying the name correct. I'm sorry if
Yes,
I'm
yes.
saying it not correctly. So my name is terrible in spelling as well, so a lot of people not say it correctly. So I sent you a presentation, and if you need any more resources or documents, just reach out to me, and I can share that with you, and you share it with because I have some people reach out to me on LinkedIn about this webinar. They told me they didn't get. I hopefully they get it resolved right now, the link. And so anybody needs help or they want to talk further, more discussions, you can find me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to get in touch, and I'm very happy to be here with you. It's been really very interesting discussions, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a wonderful evening. And we are looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming events. Goodbye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.